And welcome back to INTV Today. My name is Ken Mijungu. With me in studio is Ken Mijungu, who is the former chairman for the National Youth Council. Nerima Wako Ojiwa, she is the executive director of Siasa Place, and Jack Okula, a policy expert and also an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, join me in studio to discuss issues of the youth, and in specific, the National Youth Service. Let me begin with a graft that was unearthed at the National, the Youth Development Fund, that is, the Youth Development Fund. And this is something that Kenyans are talking about. Ronnie Sumba has been there for 2 years, right? And then this is something that happened long before that. But let's put that into context before we talk about the National Youth Service generally. The fact that we still have situations where graft cases are unearthed, where does that leave us? Let me begin with Jack. He goes there 2 years down the line, then he discovers, oh, there was some money that left. We know that there's still investigations that are going on. I think Bruce Odhiambo and the team are in court. I know one lady passed on, but this is still active. Then there is another one that comes in.
The youth sector generally, whether it is the NYS, whether it is the Youth Enterprise Development Fund or NYC, any sector within the, the youth industry is a money-minting venture for the big men and the big women, if they are big women. Because what normally happens is that there is a lot of money that is supposed to be going to these institutions like the Youth Fund and NYS. Rarely do you find the people that are, the young people that this money are meant for benefiting from this. You find so old people have been appointed to the institutions, the old people, because they are laxity in systems, whether they are legal systems or the policy systems or the administrative systems in these institutions are totally so weak that it would not be possible for one.
Is it fashioned that way? Is it fashioned?
It is fashioned this way deliberately so that these monies are swindled. Okay. You see, they are conveyor belts for people who want to take money like NYS or the Youth Fund. They are merely conveyor belts. Of course, you have to pass money through an institution before it can ultimately land into your pocket. But I think that is when people talk about reforms, and Billy has been in the youth industry for a long time. We've tried to restructure the youth industry with him in the past. It is a big mountain to climb, an insurmountable mountain to climb, because everybody would be opposed to these reforms. Okay. The reforms are people will oppose them because they want the institutions to be so weak that they would want to get these monies deliberately and all the time. So Bruce Odhiambo comes in. There is, before Bruce Odhiambo, there was Gor Semelango comes in, and they find very weak systems. Very weak that it would be unforgivable for you not to steal. It is so tempting because the money is there and people know that this money has been given out for people to steal. So when you are the head of that institution in the category of a board member or the chair of the board or the CEO or some high-ranking official, you will really be asked, bring us this amount of money. From the ministry to the top people, they'll tell you, bring us this amount of money, and then you account for it. So whether you have stolen or otherwise, of course, in the process, I lost my friend, Catherine, quite bad. But then people will tell you, bring us money, and then you account. Since you are the accounting officer, at the end of the day, people will go for your head. You may not have actually stolen this money.
Okay. Yeah. And no one is there to save you at that time. No one is there to say that we asked for money from this institution. Nerima, do you believe that's what's happening in these institutions? Do you believe they're so weak as to allow you to give you that temptation to steal? Do you believe that they're deliberately fashioned in a way that people will steal?
Absolutely. When we look at the stories that have come out with people having proxy companies and using tendering processes that you wonder how they were able to reach the final stages and transfer of funds. So it means that there are people within these systems who this has become an everyday affair. It's cultural. But also, as Jack was talking about previous youth ventures from our history, they've always been stolen from. So it's almost a tradition that anything that goes to the youth is eaten. It doesn't reach the youth.
Kazi kwa vijana,
Exactly.
pesa
All
kwa
of them.
wazee. Yeah.
All of them.
Yes.
And when we even talk about youth, what worries me the most is the fact that as much as we're getting older as a country, the youth population is getting younger. So you're going to have more and more youth that you need to take care of. And these youth are not only hungry, they have unemployment, there's lack of access to education and health. And so you have a population that is getting angrier and more. And then there's less money getting to them, this government will have a serious problem. So we need to start talking about how can we create systems and processes to where these funds are reaching this very population. Because if not, we have a ticking time bomb.
Okay. I'm wondering, because you are the helm of the National Youth Council, how weak was the systems? Well,
I've never seen more rigorous systems. It said all over that government actually outlives everyone. So people are deliberate with systems. When you are in this institution, you can actually see that everything is done and systems are put in place to be able to safeguard public money. And I can say this honestly without any provocation. Systems are not deliberately weak. You look at the case, we're going to talk about later, but like NYS, a set of updated laws before somebody takes office, but deliberately ignores those laws and just do things and try to cover up. So I do not think that systems are that weak, but it is deliberate. And because corruption war goes nowhere, it goes around, people are just there for the sake of it. I want to talk about Youth Fund. Youth Fund has come a long way, and I can confidently tell you from where I sit and from what I know, they've done well over the past 2 years in terms of restructuring the fund to get it to work and deliver for young people. It might not be ultimately what we expect it to be, but they've come from far, and the way Youth Fund was set up, it was hurriedly set up such that it was just not going to deliver to young people at that point in time. But if you look at what Ronnie has done, Ronnie and group have done, they've done quite well, save for the corruption scandals that keep popping up that are no reference to them, but to other heads or previous heads of that institution. So they have done well. These scandals, I think they should come out so that they clear them up and move on to a new chapter. But again, something has also come up, they are merging those funds. So sooner or later, there will be no youth fund to talk about. There will be one fund, a Biashara fund. But it is right that today, as it is, they've done well, and I think their systems continue to improve. That I will defend. And they are very quick to action. When they realize that there were officers in the fund who are messing up things, they swiftly removed them. They didn't even think twice about it. So I do think things are working for them. But now, that fund is going to be under one fund, which is also a disadvantage to young people, because suppose you have $1 billion for the taking, and women are more proactive than young people. So unless you say 300 million will be strictly for youth, once women have exhausted their 500, you're not going to come to the youth one. You see. So okay. That will be another reality that they will have to deal with. And we can actually see it in access to government opportunities, AGPO, where you pre-qualify youth and you pre-qualify women. But if I'm Ojiwa here, what happens is as soon as I'm over 35, like I was yesterday, she goes to the women
and gets it through Nerima.
So a gap remains for the youth who are like Jack.
I want to still talk about this, ladies and gentlemen, because right now, Professor Margaret Kobia is attempting to restructure. You bring in Matilda Sakwa, right? And then you move in and rein in on the officers you believe have been complicit in this. And then you believe that this is the medicine. I'll take you back to the last director of the NYS. That's what they did when Waiguru and Mangiti left, right? They thought they had restructured it. But if these systems are not deliberately fashioned, set, engineered to fail, then how comes it's still easy to find these gaps?
It has come to the point that whenever anyone is appointed the Director General of NYS, we look at him or her in terms of billions. People literally envy you, yet it is not such a high-ranking job in the Republic of Kenya. It's just like, it's just a
It's
DG.
not high-ranking?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Of NYS. That's, I mean, a low-cadre job. And people look at you in terms of billions because they believe that this is the vampire. This is the money-minting vampire where money will be swindled and you are likely to be a beneficiary. Now, it doesn't matter who has been appointed. I don't know Matilda by the way. I understand she's been in the...
He's a commissioner for one of the counties.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I heard about her yesterday for the first time. Maybe it's because of my lack of due diligence. But the issue is that it doesn't matter whether it is Ken Mijungu, whether it is Matilda, or any other person, whether it is Gidongo who has been appointed there. The issue and the question is about the systems. And I'm happy the minister, the cabinet secretary is talking about legal reforms, policy reforms, administrative reforms, how things are done. So you might just bring person A and replace that person B, but if the systems are not working and they're deliberate, money will still be taken. As I said earlier, it may not be that the Director General and the people who are working there are taking this money. Someone else might be taking this money and cashing on the weak systems. And when the weak systems, the corrupt cash on them, then it doesn't matter who sits there.
Okay, okay. You
Yeah,
agree?
so you cannot talk big and say now we have brought in a new team, we are going to fight
We're
corruption.
confident there will be no NYS 3.
I think NYS Act was enacted in 1965.
Yeah,
1965.
but it was reviewed after 2010, right?
Yes, it's been reviewed, but no monumental review has been done to it to accord with the modern trends and of the youth industry.
My argument, okay, Nerima.
No, I just wanted to say that one of the things that Professor Kobia said was putting on hold pending bills, which I
Yes.
think were up to 5.6 billion. And so it's after putting those on hold, it's in the hope of looking at the different vendors that are there and then sifting through them. Because we have come to identify that is these proxy tender companies that are busy channeling these funds. And then once you tell me that those people have been identified and then putting them through the court systems, then I would say that perhaps there's a difference within this NYS. It doesn't really matter that we have now a new DG and she is called Sakwa. That does not quite matter. What matters is now the different steps that are being taken to make sure that we are diverting these corruption channels that are being used within these entities.
I sat here with Alfred Keter, Nandi Member of Parliament, and he told me even the appointment of such senior government officials are done by the cartels. I'm thinking from the top of my mind that this being the case or not being the case, if she stops the pending bills, right, and the cartels own this money, 5.6 billion shillings, this is the money for the cartels, because the people who do genuine business never get paid. They never get paid. We had a lady who committed suicide because she took a loan, she hadn't been paid, and she supplied. Now you supply air and you get paid. So this being the case that it's a cartel nation, it's a cartel NYS, and they control everything. How will she manage, Billy? How will she manage?
Well, I will start from the Cabinet Secretary, Margaret Kobia. I'm quite confident of the person of the Cabinet Secretary today.
Having been at the civil service for a long time.
And having transformed the Kenya School of Government to what it is today.
Yes.
So I believe in transformational abilities, that is in no doubt. I believe in the ability of Sakwa to perform, having been a county commissioner. There's nothing so strange that you do at NYS that you don't do in any other institution except for being an AIE holder and executing and making sure procurement is right management, to be honest. But I would focus on what they need to do. One, NYS has no board. It is structured such that the DG reports directly to government through the
CS.
Principal Secretary,
Okay.
then the Cabinet Secretary. They need to protect the Director General by having a board of sorts, an advisory board of the National Youth Service, for example, to be able to create a buffer between the NYS itself and the mainstream.
Is that deliberate? That it doesn't have a board?
Well, it's been like that from time. Government institutions grow from within, then they grow outside. That is to mean NYS could have started like this. I think when the president wanted to do this transformational agenda amongst the youth with the NYS, they should have thought about the board, but they left it in its old structure, as it were. So there was not a quick thought to transform it.
And perhaps that's the reason why we say it's deliberate.
And perhaps that's the reason why I'm suggesting that they need to have board to act as a buffer, such that the principal secretary and the CS merely plays oversight. But as it stands today, everything that is done, including procurement, it's done in the ministry. Secondly, because you have so much money going
But even
there,
before you go there, even the agencies with boards like the Youth Fund, we still see pilferage of
but it's
funds.
not as monumental as NYS. And
Perhaps it's not monumental because it's not having an allocation of 25 billion.
Another thing
Yes.
would be to unbundle, and that's why I'm coming to that 25 billion. NYS has institutions dotted all over the country. Some are doing training, some are doing engineering, some are the headquarters in Nanyuki, in wherever, all those areas. Even in Ukambani there is some. What they need to do is to make sure that the budget that they allocate to NYS is expended at the point at which services are, such that if you have an institution of NYS in Makueni, for example, let there be a mini director general or a general manager of some sort in Makueni that is the authorized person to spend money on behalf of NYS, so that you have this 25 billion, but once the money moves into NYS, everybody has his 600 million, another one has his 200 million. But when you concentrate it centrally, there are cases where you get a suppliers who've never been paid, but the system says they have been paid, but it's another person who has been paid on the bill.